Hello, Calvario. How are you guys doing? How are you, man?
Doing pretty good.
Good, good. It's been a good week. How was your week?
Very busy and stressful trying to catch up with everyone in school.
Yeah, doing all your work online,
Yeah,
right? Something like that. Everybody busy, everybody in technology, right? We're going to talk a little bit today about Generation Z. Generation Z, giving us a little bit of history, is what years to what years?
1995 through 2012.
So if you were born within that time frame of 1995 to 2012, you are considered Generation Z. Hence, topic of our choosing is to talk a little bit about you guys, right? And where you lie in the high school scene and in the area that we're working with the teens, right? So after spending the past year getting to know you guys, it's been difficult to say the least. 1 minute you guys are eating Tide Pods, and the next you're leading a nationwide effort to strengthen our community and our faith. I think that this generation is one of the youngest generations to step up and start organizing, start protesting, start, in the lawn over here, downtown at the Capitol, with signs, wanting to go to school and voicing your opinions. So again, Generation X is off to a pretty good, strong, really, really good start. We'll kind of go into a little bit with the Generation Z as far as what are some pros and some cons. Okay, worldview.
A worldview is a web of habit-forming beliefs about the biggest questions of life that helps you make sense of all your experiences.
Absolutely. Right? These are the questions a worldview it may ask and may need to answer, right?
Does God exist?
Establishing God.
How did everything begin?
The origins of the world.
What's wrong with the world?
Problem solving.
What's the ultimate solution?
Finding solutions.
Who am I?
That's your identity.
Why am I here?
That gives you purpose.
Am I living a good life?
That's the morality of your life.
What happens after I die?
That's destiny. And I think these are very, very strong points. When you look at it from no matter what your walk of life, how young you are, how old, these are very good questions that you should be asking yourself if you have not already. Some of you may already have, some of you may have not. But again, these are the questions. We'll kind of dive in a little bit kind of quick. We'll dive into what it's like for this Generation Z, Gen Z, right? And we'll talk about most teens don't know their own phone numbers. Why?
Because we don't use messages, regular messages.
You guys don't call each other very much, right? Very little. Most of it is texting, Snapchat, messengers, and you guys avoid iMessage and SMMs because most adults can go into your phone and read those. So you go into little instant applications and apps that allow you to use, say, speak, and move on and erase stuff, right? It's a very quick generation. You guys use a lot of modern day lingo, right? What you call me bad was good. It's kind of in my generation too. Bad was considered good too, right? We talked about FINA. I am going to. There's a lot of words on here. Trust me. There were so many. We were only list a few, but I mean, you guys have a lot of stuff. I hear you guys talking about savage. I hear you guys talking about Sometimes we say something funny. You say something like I'm weak, like weakness with laughter and stuff. There's a lot of really new innovative words you guys are using out there right now, right? Mm-hmm. You guys also believe that Facebook is lame, and it's actually true. So statistically looking at majority of young teenagers don't even bother looking at Facebook. Why?
Just because it's kind of old and everything is still saved and we just like
it's just kind of just a little feed of stuff, and you get tired of hearing this stuff. You want to get real people's opinions. You're tired of people sharing all this stuff, and on top of that, your parents are in there, so you don't want your parents reading your stuff, right? Okay.
No interest in working at large companies.
Nope. This generation wants to start. It wants to rule the world. It wants to create its own businesses. They want to create a whole new internet. They want to create new search engines. They want to create to solve puzzles. They want to cure cancer. They want to cure COVID-19. They want to do so many different things. They're thinking a whole lot differently. Looking at this statistically, what we did find is that most teens have little interest in working for major corporations, even giants like Google or Microsoft. They've seen their parents and their older brothers and sisters in the workforce become unhappy despite having really good paying jobs. They make good money, but they're miserable. They want to do something
Stress,
fun.
anxiety.
They want to do something they love, something they enjoy, and they want to get paid for it, right? So whether it's art, they want to do it and then get sell their art and make tons of money that way. But they want to be happy. This generation is the one generation who says work shouldn't have to be work. Work should be your passion, should be something fun, it should be something that changes the world, helps the world, and then I get paid in the process, right? So it's a whole overall package. In fact, 72% of teens say they want to start their own business someday. So a lot of them are thinking, okay, we talked about this. I want to be a doctor, but most teenagers, believe it or not, are thinking, I want to own a hospital. Because they may be a doctor that owns a hospital that has 100 other doctors working for them. Just the mentality is different. They want to run things.
Gamers are heroes, not geeks.
Yeah, I don't see. Back in the day, in my generation, a lot of the guys used to tease the guys used to stay at home on their computers all day long or playing video games. They called them geeks. Not today. Today, those are heroes. Today, gamers is where all the money's at. That is the real. That's where sports are at. That's where people are being idolized. Is who won what game, right? Yeah. These are the people making millions of dollars that are they're the new icons of today. YouTube bloggers, tons of YouTubers, right? That's the people that are being followers. So the heroes of yesterday, like the sports, it's the old timers that like the sports, right? The new generation don't even care about that. They care about esports, anything that's electronic, anything that has to do with internet. It's just esports is now it's where it's at, and by it not necessarily means that you're watching football in a tablet. It means you're watching somebody play a game on a tablet, and who can do that better? Something that I struggled for a long time to understand. Like, why would you watch somebody play a video game for 2 or 3 hours and all you're doing is watching and you don't get to play? That made no sense to me. But when you realize that you're watching somebody do something with such skill, that you're like, wow, then I can understand why. That makes sense, right? And I think this generation is all about that. What are teens worried about?
Teens have grown up watching reports of broken political systems, devastating climate change, mass shootings at schools, homegrown terrorism, and ongoing wars.
It is no surprise that the polls that we've seen shows that teenagers are stressed. Over 40% of teens stated that they are stressed all the time, not sometimes, all the time. 40%. That means 4 out of 10 teenagers are always stressed, right? 79% of teens are already worried about their job prospects, and 70% are worried about inequality. So here's the thing: 7 out of 10 teenagers kind of have an idea of what they want to do when they grow up. A lot of them, that 7 out of 10 is worried on how they're going to get that job, and then 7 out of 10 know that when they get there, they're not going to be treated right. They're not going to be paid what they're worth. Especially if it's a woman or a young lady. She knows that she's going to have to deal with a man having a higher salary. And then that man's going to get there and then have to worry about, am I going to pay higher taxes now? And the rich are getting richer. Well, I pay more taxes. And then, again, inequality, right? These are things that most teenagers never thought about. But most teenagers they're dealing with this. And guess what? They also want to go to get governments in the job to change laws, to do things to protect them in the future, which is something that in our generation we didn't do. Mm-hmm. Only the rich had the elite had the fortune of going to very expensive Ivy schools to become politicians, not to help the world, but to help themselves get richer, unfortunately. But I think this generation has a really good idea of where they want to go with that and really change things to help help the
society.
overall society. But with that being said as well, today's teens and Generation Z, they believe adults are close-minded. And what that means is they believe that we as adults don't understand what when they say, well, we don't want to listen to what's gay, what's trending. We don't want to consider what racial diversity generation means. And sometimes they get locked into this little worlds where at school, you got the generation of same-sex relationships and a whole lot of other different things that are going on where they think, okay, adults can't handle that. So this generation, instead of going to adults, goes to other teens.
And they stay in the same community.
Social media. They take it immediately. Mom's not gonna understand me, so let me text my friend. And it's usually there during the texting, during media, during all this social stuff that you have. Their kids are finding out how to get direction, how to come out of the closet, how to make decisions about their life, how to make decisions about their orientation, how to make decisions of what they believe. And this is kind of what we're finding ways to communicate and get back to for us to have that dialogue open, right? Because even with teenagers, they don't even use words. They use emojis. They use, what else they use?
Memes, GIFs.
Right? They use all these different little things to communicate, because sometimes a look from a character can say a million different words, and they didn't have to type it. They just had to put the picture, right? Yeah. So again, they're creative. So given the prevalence of social media and screen in our society, there's an acceleration of ideas, beliefs, practices that are out of this. They're out of the step with what God has revealed in the Bible. So they don't line up. There's also a whole lot of opportunity for atheists to reach out to other people and convince, because you're getting bombarded by yourself. If I wanted to focus on a young man like this and I'm an atheist, I can sit there and drill him with tons and tons and tons and tons of information, where after a while I can get you to doubt. I can get you to understand, because this is also one of the loneliest generations, because it's also the one group that isolates itself, does everything on their palm of their phone or their computer, because there's not even a phone anymore, on their little palm computer, and they do everything here, and they close off to the world. Those standing in front of you, around you, whatever,
everything is just in that little room, so they don't have to go out to the world. We feel enclosed just because everything is here. FaceTiming, messaging, all of that, so we don't expose ourselves to the world anymore.
And sometimes nobody's challenging you to ask those big questions we asked earlier. Nobody's asking you if you believe that. Sometimes asking those questions can get you away. People reject you, like, I don't want to talk about that, or why are you messing up our conversation, or whatever. It's divided. It divides people into social groups. It really does. So the percentage of biblical worldview by generation. We're going to talk about this generation. So the overview by this generation is 10%. So if we're looking at what it was like during my dad's time, for example, it was about 10% of the population, which is quite big when you think about it. Even though 90% is not 10%, is still the overall. Yeah. The boomers have 10% of the baby boomers had that biblical worldview. 7% of Generation X, which is my generation. So we went from 10% of the world to 7% of the world. And then the millennials, which came right after me, were at 6%. So they dropped a little bit again. And then now your generation is at 4% of biblical worldview. That means that when they see the world, they're like, we can fix it. And the mentality is, we can do a better job. And it's, we can do a better job. That's the key. Not God. We're going to pray to God to give us direction, to lead the way, because it's a biblical. It's almost like I'm gonna work really, really, really hard to find a cure for cancer, but it's me who's gonna do it. We don't want to give God the credit for that, right?
We don't want to ask Him, "Hey, can you give me wisdom to be able to do this?" We decide that we can do it by ourselves.
And that's the mentality that's happening right now with our Generation Z. So again, right now we are talking about 4%. 4% is very, very, very tiny. So, in reality, this is only the people that this organization has come out and asked, which is the Barna Group, which has a good reputation for finding information for Christianity and to report what America's from a Christian perspective, right? And what they believe is that it's even fewer than that 4%. So, with those that are born between 99 and 2015, for that Gen Z, it confirms that that worldview, in other words, that Christian view of the world is decreasing. In other words, there's so many new things that are being added. So instead of being a man and a woman creating a family, now it could be a man and a man, a woman and a woman, and that's now the new view. And that reality of God gets pulled to the sides, right? So there's that decline. And I think schools attack you so much more. Any public school is going to say, "Oh, well, you can't discriminate. You can't talk negatively about these things," right? And we're being forced to look at things
to agree with it when we don't have to.
But in reality, you don't have to. We can have our own views. And I think that as a generation, including for us, the parents, it's such an important time to really enforce the values that we've carried throughout, so that they don't continue to diminish and to really decline to a point where eventually maybe we're okay, but then our children's children have wanted to do nothing with God at all, right? A godless society is a horrible thought. It is a very, very horrible thought. So again, we're going back to the baby boomers, 10%, Gen X, 7%, millennials, 6%, and now Gen Z, 4%. And it's just almost, it keeps every generation wants less and less and less to do with God. So we ask, what is your identity? And the very top, I know it's kind of hard to see, but it's, what is your influences? Who's influencing you? Who is it that you are going to?
Who does the world want from you?
Right.
And what does the world, I apologize.
Correct. And again, if you have a chance to even pause this on your computer and blow this up and read this, but in reality, there are so many things that can lead you to that. But we'll allow you to go through that. The question still begs, because schools are getting ready to open. Even though we're not ready, so many people are pushing really hard that they want to go back to school, right? Yeah. Especially your generation. Gen X is out there with signs and they're picketing and they're like, we want to go back to school. I don't care if you think we're ready to go now. We want it. And our governor may cave in and say, hey, if you guys want to go at your own risk, go for it. Knock yourselves out. So the question is the world going to be the same? Well, you think me?
No.
I think some people are still gonna feel like some people are not gonna care. They're gonna,
They're just gonna go back to the way they were.
Exactly. And for others, they're gonna be the social distancing, the mask, and then be like, no, back off. Like, I don't know you that well. Even if I know you that well, it's gonna take some time for things to go back, right? Mm-hmm. The question is now, where do you guys stand? How do you feel about that? That's the main thing, and things you may have to ask yourself is, am I ready for that? And also, there's been a lot of times, a lot of you have been in church. There's been a lot of this big lapse where some of you may be disconnected, and this is where we would love to have that opportunity to meet, especially if we get the church open for us to get together and bring some of that intimacy, because it gets lost. It gets really lost. I mean, we can talk about it, but some of it gets lost. And that's exactly what the world wants. The world wants to keep track of everything we're doing. That's why, you have so many things that are free online, Zoom, you have all of these different teams, and you have all these different websites that you can use to communicate and send communication back and forth. And the world wants to know where we're at. Literally, it wants to know who's on what, who believes what, and start creating what's all happening. These tiers of what's really going on. And I think that there's so much, it's so important that there's still privacy in this country, where as a group, as Christians, we can build and do what we want to do in the church without having to give an account to anybody, right? Because these are things that are important for us to grow, especially because we're protecting our belief system. Getting ready for the future. You gotta have a plan. You gotta understand where we're standing, and understand that maybe even your Christianity may be challenged. That that things are so difficult that maybe you may need to start searching for God on your own, finding online material, listening to Christian music. You got to stay connected, because the world wants to strip that away. The world wants nothing to do with that. They would love to get rid of Christianity. They would love to get rid of churches and have this free society, which, unfortunately, we know that biblically it doesn't work. It doesn't work, all right? So what's the vision? The vision is to continue to get strong, grow, and really understand why we are Christians. And I think that's something that we can share in more detail.
And stay healthy with the connection with God, even through this, and trying to be separated.
Absolutely. What's important? What is important? What's important is your salvation, your health. You guys are young, and I think as passionate and as strong as your generation is, it would be awesome if God was at the priority. Can you imagine how powerful your generation would be if God was at their number one priority of everything? You can go from one of the lowest non-conforming, non-wanting to be generation to the most powerful generation that has ever been. But again, who's gonna take that challenge, that vision, and say, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna lead the next generation of Christian teenagers. I'm gonna feel this. I'm gonna do that. And there's so many things that you can do that the world doesn't want you to do, but it's there, And again, that's just food for thought as to what's your vision. And I would ask that you pray and ask God for direction as to where He wants you, and where we can be used, obviously. Yes. And the last question is, what are you going to do? Because only you can answer that. I think we all have that calling. We all have that responsibility of where we want to be. But at the end of the day, we have to decide to do it or not, right? So that's the challenge. As children of God, we know where we stand. So do you know where you stand? That's the question. And we've asked this in previous presentations. Do you understand where in time we are? And if we continue to diminish, and if we continue to move in that direction, it wants nothing to do with God, then we're getting really close to the end of times. And that's scary. That's really scary. But again, I think that we have work to do. We all have work to do. We all have our faith that we need to defend, and we all have that desire to want to stay in the fight and stay strong. Yes. So the question is, where do you stand? Mm-hmm.
What do you believe and why? Remember why you believe in God. Are you Christian? How do you know you're Christian?
Question. You gotta question things. You gotta question. Sooner or later, you get into the routine of how you do things. Ask yourself why. Why do you do this all the time? Why is this pandemic happening? Why are we stuck here? Why are we, why is all of a sudden everybody wanting to work from home? Why is everything so accessible from home? And just remember, the more you can divide a country, the easier it is to rule. Because if you're at the very top, you're the richest, the most powerful, the more people are spread, the less communication they have in the sense of organization, the weaker they are, because you just rule them one at a time. So again, Generation Z is on top of things. It has the technology at their fingertips, but also remember, you also have the Bible at your fingertips, because you don't need the big old heavy book. It's in your
hand.
It's in your computer. Your handheld little phone is now a computer. Look it up. Ask questions. Ask God for direction. Pray that He gives you the wisdom, and He has something planned for everybody. It's something completely different for every one of us, and that's the kind of things that you want to ask God for.
What does God want for you? What does He have planned for you?
Those are things you want to ask God. I mean, we would love to tell you what some awesome things you could do, but God can definitely just give you that direction. So pray. Make that part of your prayer. So we'll kind of conclude it with that, and just kind of give you some perspective, and understand that we're going through some major changes. Understand that biblically, this is a perfect time to start reading the news outside of what's on the news channel 315. Sometimes you even have to disconnect from media here in the United States. You got to tune into other countries to see what's happening, because there are other countries that report the truth that they refuse to show inside of our country. And start looking at how many churches are being affected. Start looking at how many churches are closing. Start looking at how many churches are even struggling just to stay afloat. And then understand that there's a whole bunch of churches that are thriving. They got just thousands and thousands, even millions of new people that are following, that it's online. That for a long time they were doing online, and people were like, no, that's crazy. But they're doing it. And the question we need to ask ourselves is, where are we at? Where are where are we headed to? What direction are we headed to? And understand that we all need to do our part, so that we can come to just come to a place where we can worship God, and we can get connected, and we can get fed. And now it's still through media, but
for now,
I think our mission, what we really want, is still to get together and be able to just share and come together and fellowship, and just love on one another. Again, like always, here's our information. It's always there if you want to reach out to us. Prayer, direction, questions. Please continue to send us. We have received some questions, which is good. And then just remember, September 5th, we do have an event at the church for the teenagers, and we want to have an event, hopefully maybe like a movie inside, and then maybe some food outside. But we are working on that, and I know that it will be advertised on our website, as well as communication being sent out during the church. Alfredo's working really hard to get that communication out to you guys. Other than that, thank you so much for tuning in and just allowing us to share a little bit about Generation Z and kind of where we're at, and just giving you a little bit of just little insight there. But thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.